Mercedes just declared war on the FIA. And the reason could destroy the entire Formula One season. Because only days before the Canadian Grand Prix, the FIA moved to shut down the exact Mercedes engine system that turned the Silver Arrows into the most dominant team on the grid. 4 races. 4 wins. A championship lead that already looked untouchable. And now, suddenly, Toto Wolff is furious. Not because Mercedes broke the rules, but because the team believes Formula One changed the rules the moment Mercedes became too fast. According to reports inside the paddock, Mercedes discovered a loophole that allowed the engine to become dramatically more powerful once it reached full race temperatures. The numbers are shocking. Some estimates suggest the system may have delivered between 10 and 20 extra horsepower during races. That is enormous in modern Formula One. And rival teams completely panicked. Ferrari pushed the FIA. Honda pushed the FIA. Audi joined the pressure. Then came the decision that changed everything. Starting in Canada, engines will now be checked under hot operating conditions, directly targeting the Mercedes advantage. Which means the fastest car in Formula One may suddenly become vulnerable overnight. But here's the part nobody saw coming. Mercedes is no longer just defending the engine. The team is demanding equal treatment from the FIA itself. Because inside Mercedes, there is a growing belief that they are being punished for one reason only. They solved the Formula One rulebook better than everyone else. At first, nobody inside Formula One understood how Mercedes became this dominant this quickly. The W17 did not just look fast. It looked comfortable. That is what scared rival teams the most. Because dominant Formula One cars usually have weaknesses somewhere. Tire wear, straight line speed, corner balance, energy deployment. Mercedes looked strong everywhere. And the deeper races went, the stronger the car seemed to become. That detail immediately triggered suspicion inside the paddock. Because normally, Formula One cars become harder to manage as temperatures rise. Engines lose efficiency. Components suffer. Drivers start fighting degradation. Mercedes somehow appeared to gain performance once races reached full operating temperatures. Especially on long straights. And rival engineers started asking themselves one terrifying question. What exactly did Mercedes discover? Then the first rumors started spreading through the garages. According to reports, Mercedes engineered the M17E performance engine to behave differently once heat built up inside the system. Cold, the engine reportedly remained within the legal compression ratio limits required by the FIA. But once temperatures passed 130 degrees Celsius during races, the compression ratio could reportedly rise close to 18:1. And that changes everything. Think about a pressure cooker in a kitchen. The more pressure trapped inside, the more energy gets released once the system opens. That is essentially what compression does inside an engine. More compression means stronger combustion. Stronger combustion means more power. And more power in Formula One means lap time. A lot of lap time. Some estimates suggest Mercedes may have gained between 10 and 20 horsepower from this system alone. That advantage is massive in a sport where teams spend millions fighting for tiny fractions of a second. Suddenly, Mercedes' early domination started making much more sense. 4 races. 4 wins. Huge championship lead. But here's where the political war inside Formula One truly exploded. The FIA initially reviewed the engine and declared it legal under the existing regulations. That decision is exactly why Toto Wolff is now so furious. Because from Mercedes' perspective, the team followed every written rule correctly. The engine passed inspection. The car was approved. The victories were earned fairly. But rival teams refused to accept it. Ferrari reportedly pushed the FIA aggressively. Honda pushed even harder. Audi joined the pressure as well. Because they believed Mercedes had discovered something the regulations technically allowed, but never intended to allow. And Formula One has seen this story before. Every dominant era begins the same way. One team finds a loophole. Everybody else falls behind. Then politics enters the sport. That is exactly what Mercedes believes is happening now. Because once the Silver Arrows started dominating the championship, the FIA suddenly introduced new testing procedures that directly targeted the way Mercedes operated its engine. And the timing could not be more brutal. The new hot temperature checks begin during the Canadian Grand Prix weekend itself. Meaning Mercedes now arrives in Montreal carrying pressure unlike anything they faced all season. Because the entire paddock is waiting for one thing. The first sign that Mercedes may no longer be untouchable. But here's where the entire situation becomes dangerous for Mercedes. Because this is no longer only about losing horsepower. It is about losing control of the championship psychologically. And in Formula One, that can destroy a dominant team faster than any regulation change. For the first 4 races of 2026, Mercedes controlled the grid completely. Rivals arrived at race weekends already expecting the silver arrows to disappear once the lights went out. That kind of dominance changes the mentality of the entire paddock. Drivers start forcing mistakes because they believe perfection is the only way to compete. Strategists become desperate. Engineers panic trying to find impossible gains overnight. Mercedes created fear across Formula One. But now, suddenly, the atmosphere is changing. Because the FIA intervention gave every rival team something they did not have before: hope. And hope is incredibly dangerous in Formula One. Especially for a team trying to protect a championship lead. McLaren already sensed it first. Their victory in Miami completely shifted the mood inside the sport. Before Miami, Mercedes looked unbeatable. After Miami, the paddock started asking questions. Then the FIA announced the new engine checks. And suddenly, Canada transformed from a normal race weekend into a pressure test for Mercedes itself. Because nobody truly knows what the W17 will look like once the new restrictions fully apply. Not Ferrari. Not McLaren. Not even Mercedes. That uncertainty is terrifying. And Canada is the worst possible circuit for uncertainty. Montreal exposes raw engine performance brutally. Long straights punish weakness immediately. Heavy braking zones make acceleration differences obvious. Tiny horsepower losses suddenly become visible to millions of people watching speed trap data live. That is exactly why the entire paddock will be staring at Mercedes during practice sessions. Not at lap times. At top speeds. Because if the silver arrows suddenly lose straight-line pace, everyone will understand instantly what happened. The FIA restriction worked. And psychologically, that could change the entire season overnight. But the deeper problem for Mercedes may be even worse. Because Formula One cars are incredibly sensitive systems. One technical adjustment rarely stays isolated. If Mercedes must lower engine compression under hot conditions, cooling behavior could change. Energy deployment could shift. Aerodynamic balance may suddenly react differently. Think about trying to balance on ice while somebody quietly changes the shape of your shoes. Everything still technically works. But suddenly, nothing feels stable anymore. That is the kind of hidden instability Mercedes may be facing before Canada. And this explains why Toto Wolff sounds so angry publicly. Because from Mercedes' perspective, this is not equal treatment. The team believes they solved the regulations legally, only for the rules to shift once competitors could not catch them on track. That frustration is growing stronger because the FIA already plans to continue these hot condition checks permanently moving forward. Which means Formula One itself effectively admitted Mercedes discovered a loophole powerful enough to force a long-term regulatory change. And inside the paddock, that creates a strange contradiction. Privately, many engineers probably admire what Mercedes achieved. Because Formula One has always rewarded innovation living right on the edge of legality. That edge is where legendary teams are born. But publicly, rivals could not allow Mercedes to continue dominating this way. Not Ferrari. Not McLaren. Not Red Bull. Not with the championship already slipping away after only 4 races. So now, everything comes down to Montreal. One race. One FIA decision. One moment that may completely redefine the season. Because if Mercedes suddenly struggles, the title fight explodes back to life instantly. But if the silver arrows survive the restrictions and remain dominant anyway, then the rest of Formula One faces a terrifying reality. The loophole was never the real secret. Mercedes may simply have built a better car than everyone else. And maybe that is the most uncomfortable part of this entire story for the rest of the grid. Because if Mercedes survives Canada without losing its advantage, then Formula One may have accidentally made Toto Wolff's team even more dangerous. History shows dominant teams react differently under pressure. Some collapse. Others evolve. Mercedes usually evolves. That is exactly why rival teams pushed so hard for FIA intervention now, before the championship gap became impossible to close. After only 4 races, Mercedes already held a massive lead over Ferrari and McLaren. And the frightening part was not just the points. It was how effortless the dominance looked. The W17 appeared stable everywhere. Fast over 1 lap. Fast over race distance. Extremely efficient with energy deployment. That combination terrified the paddock. Because Formula One teams can usually target at least one weakness. Mercedes looked like they had none. And now Canada becomes the first real test of whether that image was real or partially created by the controversial engine behavior. But here is where things become psychologically brutal for Mercedes. Every single detail this weekend will become a public investigation. Every speed trap number. Every qualifying sector. Every onboard camera clip. Formula One media will analyze everything, searching for evidence that the FIA restriction changed the car. And once a dominant team starts getting examined under that kind of microscope, pressure spreads everywhere internally. Drivers feel it. Engineers feel it. Strategists feel it. One small mistake suddenly feels catastrophic. That is why Toto Wolff's anger matters more than people realize. Because when a team boss starts publicly fighting the FIA, it usually means frustration inside the garage is already boiling over. Mercedes genuinely believes they are being treated unfairly. The engine was approved initially. The car passed inspections. The regulations never explicitly banned what they created. From their perspective, the rest of Formula One simply failed to innovate quickly enough. And now the sport itself is stepping in to slow Mercedes down artificially. That belief can become incredibly powerful motivation, especially inside a team that already knows how to dominate championships. But there is another layer to this story that makes Canada even more fascinating. Mercedes is not arriving quietly. The team is bringing major aerodynamic upgrades to Montreal at exactly the same time the FIA restrictions begin. And nobody outside Mercedes truly knows what that means yet. Officially, the upgrades are described as normal development. More aggressive side pod design. Improved airflow toward the rear diffuser. Front wing refinements. But inside the paddock, rival engineers are asking a much more important question. Are these upgrades designed to improve the car? Or to hide performance Mercedes already knows they are about to lose? That uncertainty is creating paranoia everywhere. Because Formula One teams hate unknowns more than anything else. And right now, nobody truly understands how much performance Mercedes may lose once the engine operates under the new FIA conditions. Some believe the impact will be small. Others believe Canada could expose weaknesses hidden all season long. And if Mercedes suddenly looks vulnerable, the entire championship changes instantly. Ferrari regains belief. McLaren attacks harder after Miami already proved Mercedes can be challenged. Red Bull becomes aggressive strategically again. Momentum shifts across the grid overnight. That is why Canada feels bigger than a normal Grand Prix now. This is no longer simply about winning one race. This is about discovering the true balance of power in Formula One for the rest of 2026. Because when the lights go out in Montreal, one massive question will finally get answered.